Well, good morning, Chucktown Wind Report. This is Thursday, June 11th, 2015. This is a follow-up from last night's presentation. So we are still tracking Bermuda high pressure, which looks to be a little bit more east and north, the center, east and north of where it was last night. So what I'm also seeing with this feature, it's able to become a more robust high pressure in this location where it is. That's this isobar right here. That sort of is being shown on the surface map, but it's not being reflected yet. I believe that will be our 1020 millibar line. The 1016 will probably drift into our coastline at some point today, and this is favorable for the high pressure build. Now we already see that this area has dried out somewhat. A lot of that storming is over with. There's some residual cloud, mid-level, low-level cloud debris left overhead that we should wake up to. However, I do feel that most of this activity out here will dry out as the day goes on. Now we are looking at, watching this area, this tail end of that cold front that's broken off to the north and slowly dissipating. And you know, we're watching this one on infrared radar because right now the sun is not up yet, so we're not able to get a visible loop on it. So let's take a quick look at that, and you can see on the infrared loop, you see a lot of kind of convective activity blowing up around it. There's no real well-defined center, and there is quite a bit of upper level shear going on from south to north. So you see a lot of these cloud tops being blown. This area right here looks more like a mid to upper level low pressure, which also would add a little bit more of this shear coming up from the south. So not really seeing much favorability for this area to develop, but definitely something to keep an eye on. If we look at the surface from earth.nullschool.net, we can definitely see this high pressure center here with your general synoptic southerly flow coming up the coastline, your easterly trades from the ridge over on this side all the way across into the Gulf of Mexico. So when we are looking at the areas in question for upper level shear, the upper environments, to see if they're favorable for tropical development, we always want to start at some of your higher levels, about 500 millibars, or HPA as this Earth Null School has it. So here's that mid to upper level low pressure right here, and you can see the southerly draw sort of following up from the south to the north, and that's giving it that mid-level to upper level shear. And if we even go up a little bit higher, we'll probably see a little bit more of that. And there we go. So you have some stronger winds aloft that are not going to be favorable for development, and probably push anything that develops onshore and sap the juice out of any rotations that get started with it. So one of the other tools that I really like to use a lot for our surface data is the SPC mesoscale analysis. Now this kind of gives a broad perspective of what's actually happening at the surface. Here, 1016 millibar reading, and I'm hoping to see a 1020 millibar isobar line come in some point today just to show that build. Now these are observations, generalized observations. Some of them come from the buoys and some of them are virtual. Now we got these little flagstaffs are indicative of what the winds are doing. So if you've never seen one of these before, this is what's called a wind barb. The flagstaff shows a long tick on the end, and that means 10 knots. The half tick that you would see over on these means 5 knots. So that means this one is 15 knots and this is 10 knots. The more bars you have on the flagstaff, the higher the wind speeds are going. Now, the wind speeds are always coming from the direction. So if we look at this flagstaff here, this wind direction is coming from the south-southwest. So the barbs always point towards the direction the wind is coming from, if that makes any sense. It's a little bit confusing, but basically the winds are going from southwest to north-northeast in this map here. So most of this shower activity is offshore. This is a general mesoscale analysis of the area, and it actually helps to give guidance of where the gradients are. So right now you see the gradients are right here and right here where the stronger winds are. Typically out of the Gulf Stream we see a little more activity, which is exactly where this line of showers is occurring. So some of that warmer water, surface water of the Gulf Stream on what's called a thermocline, thermohaline current, that is actually fueling some of these storms. and it's a very shallow surface current. So typically anytime tropical systems come through, not that anything's going to develop, but whenever tropical systems come through, it will cool those waters down significantly. So looking real quickly at the weather balloon reading, don't want to cause too much confusion here, but I wanted to show you something now. The weather balloon reading that went out at 7 p.m. last night did show some promising results. Now we do have this westerly flow aloft, which is exactly what we want for the sea breeze build today, and that will help push any storming activity that we see inland, mid-state, Piedmont levels, lee side troughs, anything that develops. We'll get a gentle nudge from the west. Now they're at about 20 knots here at 300 millibars, about 40 knots at 200 millibars to push those really high cloud tops over. This line right here represents our convective potential. So the wider this zone, the more convective potential that we have for today, and that seems to be the case. We don't have any thermal caps or inversions blocking anything to start from the morning out. And this is a relatively good setup for sea breezing this afternoon, with a nice westerly nudge for any thunderstorm potentials that come across early in the morning. Okay, well, that will do it for today. We're expecting winds to be moderate numbers. I'm pulling for 13 to 17 knots south-southwest along the beaches. I believe some of these coastal breaks may see a few extra knots, such as the Charleston Harbor, 15 to 19 knots, maybe even a pulse to low 20s. But for the beaches, I'm saying 13 to 17 knots, coastal breaks 15 to 19, with any inland troughing, Piedmont troughing, mid-state levels. That would add additional outflow and additional sea breeze circulation with healthy outflows. I think we'll see maybe a couple of extra knots. So it's pretty much all eyes on inland troughing and this high pressure to make sure that it builds to 1020 millibars, and we should be in good shape. And this looks to be the setup for tomorrow as well, perhaps a slightly stronger setup. Once this area of troughing is further removed to the south and out of the picture, this high will be able to generate a much more healthy synoptic southerly flow. So that will do it, and I will try to follow up tomorrow with some more information on the sea breezes as we go day to day with it. Okay, thank you.